SWAC MEAC challenges in the books, and D Davis has arrived. Also, what's going on over there at FAMU? All these players ineligible. What does it mean for right now and the future going forward? Gerald Thomas of the Tallahassee Democrat comes in to tell us all about it. Oh, yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor. Thank you for going on this journey with me, making Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean it's time to end your journey. It means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Now, I have one big takeaway from the SWAC MEAC challenge, and that is D Davis has arrived. I'm sold. Now, when you look at these two teams, Howard and Alabama State, offensively on paper, there's some big similarities to where you have a mobile quarterback, a dual threat quarterback, and you have a triumvirate of good running backs. Now, Eden James just played his first game, and he didn't get a lot of, I think, 5 carries. But I'm going to say that he's a good running back from everything that I've heard in the spring. Everything seems to be pointing to Eden James having a good season. I mean, he does have 2 really good running backs ahead of him. So there is going to be a little bit of a give and take on how good his season can be. But I think he at least earned his way into being a part of the triumvirate of good running backs. And then you look on the other side, you have Alabama State, who has a running back trio who is Earth, Wind, and Fire. Now, I understand Earth, Wind, and Fire might not be the greatest thing to kids my age, right? You know, that's not something that's being played all the time by kids my age. But we know Earth, Wind, and Fire is classic. You can't just name yourself Earth, Wind, and Fire if you're not going to come out and actually do something about it. You can't just name yourself that, right? So these are 2 really good units of running backs, and then you have 2 dual threat quarterbacks in Quinton Williams and then also D Davis. However, if you're looking on Saturday, and we're just talking about Saturday, I'm not trying to sum up somebody's whole season or whole career with this one sentence, but if I'm looking at the quarterback play on Saturday night, D Davis, they plays when plays were not presented to him. The same cannot be said about Quinton Williams. In that one sentence, if we're just summing it up, it's way more complex than that. But if we're summing it up into one sentence, that's how we describe the difference in quarterback play for each team. And I think Larry Scott saw some of the inconsistencies in his quarterback, right? Because I'm looking at Quinton Williams and I'm like, man, listen, first off, praise to the Alabama State defense. Praise to the Alabama State defense, because I don't want to make it seem as if, oh, well, he's just throwing in the air and it was all bad on offense. No, the defense has some good sticky coverage. They weren't giving the wide receivers much separation. So they did make things difficult. But I also felt as if Quinton Williams, he didn't perform like a player who before. He didn't perform like a quarterback who was one of the leading quarterbacks in the MEAC last year. You know, when I'm watching him play, he seemed nervous. He seemed giddy. He didn't seem to have everything down packed. And if you see Larry Scott, there was points when he was just frustrated with them. Now, that's not to say that everything was all bad for him. He had 2 plays that I thought were kind of risky, but they were smart plays, and they were actually throws across his body or throws across the field that I just didn't like. He was moving the other way, but they were open receivers, and both led to really good plays. One was a 4th down. One led to, I think, a 15-yard completion. They were both shallow throws, so it wasn't as if he was going 15 yards down the field and throwing across his body. It wasn't like that. So with that being the case, I'm looking at Quinton Williams, okay, you had some good, but there was too many times when I just don't feel like he put the ball where it needed to be. There was too many times when I just felt like, and you just kind of scrunch your face up and said, you wanted something more out of that, but we didn't get it. And this is kind of where I point to Coach Scott, because I wish he would have leaned on his running game more. Now, let's be clear. This is a 10-point game, 23-13. There was multiple rain delays, but oh my gosh, I couldn't get through the game without get through this segment without mentioning that, because I couldn't get throughout the game without having to witness it. Oh man, the game didn't stop till 12:30, and that's because they called it. But anywho, there was times when I felt like he should have leaned on his running game more. And Quinton Williams was struggling. You could tell he was struggling. This was only a 10-point game, and at no point was it out of hand. At no point. I think the largest lead was 14. So at no point was this out of hand. You could have ran the ball at all times of the game, except for probably the end when it got called. But you could have ran that ball. And that was when it got up to 10 points. Mind you, Alabama State got a 10-point lead, and then 5-6 plays later, it got called because of another rain delay or weather delay. So you could have ran the ball. However, Howard ran the ball 31 times. 31 times, and a couple of these are sacks, honestly, because I didn't see 7 rushes out of Quinton Williams. I didn't see him run the ball 7 times. I even looked at the play-by-play. I didn't see that. So I'm looking at, I counted 4 rushes for him, which I wish he would have done more. I wish he would have ran the ball more. He had a 17-yard scamper in the fourth quarter. I was like, oh yeah, there you go. But he just didn't do it that much. But you had 31. So let's just say by my count, it was like 28. 28 rushes for Howard. Well, we'll just do 31 because they probably counted for both. 31 rushes for Howard, 33 rushes for Alabama State. I liked the Alabama State running backs, and I thought they had some effective moments. There's no reason that Howard should have been outrushed by Alabama State. They just shouldn't have. Not in attempts, I should say, because they actually had more yards. They were more effective than Alabama State. Even the smallness or the slim amount of margin between their yards per carry, it wasn't accurate. The eye test wouldn't tell you that. So I think they should have ran the ball more. Let's get off of the negative tip. Let's get into D. Davis. D. Davis is here. D. Davis has arrived. Everything that I was saying as a critique for Quinton Williams, I feel like could be turned around for a positive for D. Davis. Man, Quinton Williams didn't act like he'd been here before. D. Davis completely looked like a quarterback who had been here, even though he hadn't been. This is his first collegiate snap or a collegiate start. He didn't play it at Auburn. So he came in here like he really been here before. Now, he knew when to appropriately use his legs. He knew that, oh, okay, I got to take off. I knew that I need to step up and scamper. There was a point when he ran up in the pocket and delivered an absolute strike on the outside shoulder of a wide receiver. And what could have looked like it was just, oh, man, he just threw the ball up and trusted his receiver. No, he did trust his receiver, but he also put it on the shoulder where the defensive back was not at. So with that being the case, it was not a 50-50 ball. It was more of a 70-30 ball. So that's something that I noticed from D. Davis. And then you're looking at him, he has so much poise. He has so much awareness. Howard won the trenches on both sides. That's why they had a good job or did a good job running the ball. But then they also won on the defensive side, but they only had 2 sacks on the day because D. Davis was able to see out of the peripherals these linemen rushing, and he had an effective spin move. I think it was like 2 to 4 times that he spun out of a sack. This guy was really effective, and he really minimized the W that Howard got on the trenches by just being that good and that elusive. D. Davis has arrived. D. Davis is a player who we're going to have to really consider. He's really going to step into that conversation of one of the better quarterbacks in the SWAC pretty quickly. Mind you, this guy is, I think he's a redshirt freshman. I think he'll be a redshirt freshman. He hasn't played, so I think he'll still be a redshirt freshman coming into the season. Alabama State might just got them a quarterback for a while, and that doesn't mean he wasn't, flawed. I don't mean he was flawless. He had 2 mistakes. Howard actually forced 2 turnovers, a fumble and an interception. Howard just couldn't capitalize on it. Neither one. I think they went 3 and out both times. One was a fumble, actually. They turned the ball right back over to him. Alabama State took advantage of their interception that they had, scored their first touchdown. There was times where Howard's defense really stepped up. They really did step up. They had a fumble, an interception, a blocked punt. There was times when Howard's defense and special teams put them into play. The offense just could not capitalize. That's what I saw, right? Now, here's one positive for Howard is that your defense did look good. So with your defense looking good, you would hope that your offense didn't evolve in a way where they can't bounce back because you were more concerned about your defense. You actually forced 2 turnovers. You only forced 3 all last year. So there are things that you can be encouraged by. But the ultimate takeaway is the fact that D. Davis is here. D. Davis has arrived. And that makes Alabama State a serious player. So we will see exactly how this goes on with week 1 on the horizon. But going forward, we're going to be talking about the FAMU scandal, the FAMU drama. You wasn't thinking I was going to come on here and not talk about it, right? So I got my guy Gerald Thomas from the Tallahassee Democrat, and he's going to be on to talk about what was going on in the mind of Willie Simmons and the FAMU players with the decision to make this game or to actually play this game. Before we do that, however, I have to get serious. I have to be serious with you and tell you that drunk driving is nothing to play with. Drunk driving is not a joke. Drunk driving is not something that you should take lightly. I understand you might be sitting down having a good time with your friends and you're tossing a couple of drinks back, but let's actually know what's going on. And let's say if you're drinking, take that person's keys. It's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. I don't care if you seem like a party pooper, none of that. Because you might be thinking, oh, the worst thing that's going to happen to me is I get pulled over. No, that's the best thing that can happen to you. Because the worst thing is you put somebody else's life in jeopardy, if not take it all together. So let's be clear. We have Uber, rideshare, Lyft. There's so many ways in the city that there's no excuse for drunk driving. Drive sober, get pulled over, and it truly is that simple. And that's if you get lucky. As we keep on rolling on today's episode of Locked on HBCU, I have Gerald Thomas from the Tallahassee Democrat to talk about the FAMU scandal, what is academically ineligible, and everything around it, because this is a situation that is here and here to stay. And we're going to talk to him for a little while about how do they move forward as well. Okay, Gerald, so you got an opportunity to sit down with Coach Willie Simmons and talk about this whole situation. We know that FAMU is missing 20 players against North Carolina just Saturday, right? But it's under this wide umbrella of academically ineligible, which could mean a multitude of things. So when people hear academically ineligible, what should they think about?
As of right now, Isaiah Land, he tweeted out and said it was something out of his control, or the reason that he was absent from yesterday's game. So with academics, it's like, that's in your control. So if he's saying it's out of his control, it's no telling what it is, and then it's also confusing because it's players that were on the team last season that were missing. Isaiah Land, BJ Bohler. And then, it's like if they were like transfers, they were first year transfers, it kind of make more sense. But it's like, it's just so confusing. It's a whole confusing situation. You know what I'm saying? We don't really have any clarity about the reasoning of why those players were deemed ineligible on a Thursday night, which spilled into Friday morning. But right now we're just going to just continue to keep asking questions and release information as it comes. You know what I mean? You'd rather be right than to be first. So I'm gonna continue to talk to Coach Sims and hopefully we can get to the bottom of it. And honestly, man, hopefully, man, that those guys be able to get back on the field sometime soon. The original number was 26. It originally was 26 guys that were missing, and they were able to get 6 of them cleared to make the trip. But man, they missed some key guys, and I can tell those guys really care about each other just with that decision to even go out there and play that game like that. So hopefully those guys will be able to get back on the field, but we'll continue to try to ask questions and dig deeper into what's the reasoning behind those players missing on Saturday.
Yeah, and the North Carolina said that getting this ineligibility or getting the eligibility confirmed, it's really a last minute process every single year. And they only got some players confirmed the day before the game. It'll be interesting. And I'll definitely be looking to see, well, what happens? Why were they last minute while FAMU, they just didn't get nearly 20. That's something that we'll have to look at. In your article that you wrote out talking to Willie Simmons, or after talking to Willie Simmons, you called this an eye-opening situation. That was something that Simmons said as well. Why do you think that this will be an eye-opener for FAMU?
Well, it was he called it an eye-opening situation because he said he felt like his players weren't being represented. I think it could possibly be some internal issues going on within, maybe, the inside workers of FAMU. So that was the main thing. He didn't really go into detail about how those guys are being underrepresented, but that's where the eye-opening situation stemmed from. So hopefully, if there's any internal turmoil going on between FAMU, between coaches and people in the higher ups or anything, hopefully they can figure that out, because man, FAMU, man, they have such a good program. I got a lot of respect for FAMU. I enjoy covering FAMU. When I was going to college, FAMU was one of the schools that I wanted to go to. So, I show a lot of love to FAMU and I enjoy being out there. So hopefully, they can be cohesive and get to their full potential, out of athletics, academics, anything. So that's where the eye-opening situation came from.
Yeah, and you said you'd rather be first, or excuse me, you'd rather be right than be first.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit of, I don't know if this information is true, and I want to give it to you and see. Now, I heard some people say it's going to be a 4-game penalty. Some people say Isaiah Land could be back next week. What's the timetable for these players who are missing and how or when they'll return?
Yeah, I've heard both things. Right now, I don't think Coach Simmons, he didn't mention, any 4 games. He just said, they're trying to, they're fighting to get these guys back for next week. So I feel like it could be a week by week situation. So like I said, I'm just going to continue to follow up with Coach Simmons and just try to find out, because at this point, I know just as much as everybody. You know what I'm saying? I only can tell as much as I'm told. So if there's any unanswered questions, that just that's just what it is right now. So hopefully, I can just continue to dig deeper and continue to ask questions and get good answers, and hopefully they be completely open with me and tell me some good things, just so I can do my job the way that I want to do it and do it in good spirit.
Right. Now, another thing, got one more. This one seemed I was a little skeptical. I wasn't sure if people were just talking crazy. You know how people on Twitter get. You really shouldn't even take information from Twitter, but I'm taking information from Twitter to then come to you. So I think I'm okay. But I've seen that basically the reason, or if FAMU had skipped this game or chosen to cancel the game, that they would have then had to pay the payout to North Carolina. Is this true?
Yeah, I mean, that was money that was given to them when they agreed to this game. I believe they agreed to this game 2 years ago. So yeah, it won't be far fetched to say they have to get the game back, but also
okay.
I want to
they have to get the money back.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure they already got the money in there, in their account or whatever. But yeah, if they might have had to get the money back, or they might have would never gotten it. So it would have been something of that sort. But also, I'll say that also with the whole money situation, it seemed that wasn't a big focus for Coach Simmons. Like when I talked to him and and we talked about the deciding factor. He said he talked to his seniors. He said he met with his seniors about 5 or 6 times. You know what I'm saying, and decided and wanted to see if they wanted to play.
Right.
He left the decision up to him. So when I see him do that, I feel like that was very selfless of him. Like he want his players to be able to control their own destiny. You know what I mean? So if they would have said, which originally they decided that they didn't want to play the game. Once all that news came out, they're on the emotional roller coaster. Like these are guys that's 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So they originally decided they didn't want to play, and then they talked about it again. Coach said they said a few prayers, and those guys went out and said, you know what, we're gonna go play. And I feel like they put up a solid performance. They were a few mistakes away from being in it. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, that's what the whole money situation. But I don't think that was a big focus of Coach Simmons. I think he wanted his players to be the ones to be the deciding factors for last night.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that first part about the money, because I'm thinking that you have to then go and give it back. But I'm glad that's not the case. That sounds significantly more plausible. But you brought up the decision to play the game, right? And it was up to the players, and they said no. But what do you think, right? Because whether you have inside information or if you're just guessing off the top of your head, what do you think was the ultimate turning point that made them say, you know what, we are going to play this game?
Well, I think, even with just us as people, I feel like when stuff like that happens, you can make decisions, out of emotion. And I feel like once they made that initial decision to say, hey, we ain't gonna play this game. You know what I'm saying? That was out of emotion because, those guys were sad. I saw a few guys, even shedding tears, on Friday when I went up to FAMU. Like, so I feel like the turning point was probably like, let's talk about this again. Maybe talk about the pros and cons. And ultimately they went out there, man, and they said, you know what, we're gonna play this game. And to me personally, I was proud of the decision for them to come together and say we're gonna play because that showed a lot about their competitive spirit of FAMU football. FAMU football has a rich history, man. Like,
Right.
so that's something that they'll remember all the time too, man. Like, you know what I mean? Either for the good or for the bad. They went through so much turmoil on Friday and then went out on Saturday and played on ESPN and the ACC network, against one of the biggest schools in the country. So, and then performed well too, man. So like,
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was cool that Coach Simmons let them make that decision and those guys were able to come together and say let's go play.
Yeah, I agree. Two guys who weren't able to step on that field were two of the best players on what should be a pretty good defense. That's Isaiah Land and BJ Bohler. Now, Billy Simmons called this a get money game because this is the opportunity to put a big game on your game tape, right? But they missed this. And these are prospects in the draft who already have eyes on them. But is there another get money game on the schedule for these FAMU players?
Man, I'll say the game that's coming up, Jackson State. A lot of eyes be on that, man. Like, this is probably my first time covering the Orange Blossom Classic. I'm new to Tallahassee. I just moved here a little over 4 months ago. So this is my first season even covering FAMU. So there's a lot of eyes gonna be on that just because it's gonna be on ESPN too. It's a Sunday game too.
Yeah.
That game is actually getting played on a Sunday. So a lot of eyes will be on that game. I know they have a few more games that'll be on like ESPN platforms. I believe the Bethune-Cookman game is ESPNU. So man, as long as they, I always believe, if you can play, man, you can play. So hopefully those guys be able to even get back on the field. Even, Isaiah Land and BJ Bohler, they were missing. And it showed, you know what I'm saying, because those are the main guys. FAMU not really a team that usually gonna give up 50 points. I don't know the last time they even did that. And then on the other side, on the offensive end, they right tackle Cameron Coven. He's, the leader of the offensive line. He was the preseason all SWAC representative off of the offensive line. So like, it was a lot of guys that were missing, man. But hopefully they can come back and up their draft stock or their NFL stock. However way they can get in the league, man. They got to. They just got to just continue to play well and keep making the right decisions, what I'm saying, being good in the classroom. And then hopefully, they'll be in the league just like Marquise Bell. I went on Twitter. I saw Marquise Bell caught an interception the other day. And I went on Twitter. I just said, he going to make the team. Like, it wasn't no analysis. It wasn't no journalism stuff. I was like, he's going to make the team. I believe final cuts in the NFL is on Tuesday, I think, or something like that. Sometime this week. But I think once it's all said and done, Marquise Bell, he's suiting up for the Cowboys, man.
Right now, this situation is hectic. It's not going anywhere. How do we move forward? What's next? What is next for the rest of the season, for the next couple of weeks? If you're looking at FAMU, how do we move on from this situation?
Well, first, it's right now you can't even run from the situation. You just got to take it head on. The next thing they got to do is get these guys back that they're missing. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you can't get everybody, just continue to, man, coach know what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, just continue to get these players back to the, back active and so they can be able to play, just keep on pressing on. But, there's no need to run from the situation because it's already out there on Front Street. So along with the season, that's going to be something that's going to be a major factor that's going on, just depending on, who are these guys that they have, man, because 20 players missing, man, that's a big chunk of a team. And even like when the ESPN cameras wasn't working at last night's game, when they were just doing the aerial view last night, like you could see the sidelines. I was like, man, look at a sideline and then look at North Carolina sideline. So, man, I just hope, they can get those, get back to full strength, you know what I mean? So yeah, man, like right now it ain't no moving on. They just gotta it's like chapters to this situation right here. So, once they get all their guys back, then that's when they'll be able to move forward and, be like, we got a full team now. We playing with a full deck of cards.
100%. This has been Gerald Thomas. Phenomenal analysis. I appreciate you for coming on. If you're looking for his work, you can find it on Tallahassee.com, the Tallahassee Democrat. If you want to keep up with this story, know what's going on with FAMU, he's there every day. He's always putting out content. Follow him on Twitter at 3PeatG. That's 3, the number 3, PEATGEE. I appreciate you for coming on the show, my guy, and breaking this down with us.
Hey, man, appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
Special shout out to Gerald Thomas for coming on the show and giving that insight about a situation at FAMU that frankly is not going anywhere. And speaking of not going anywhere in FAMU, on tomorrow's episode, we're going to be talking about Jeremy Musa because he looked good. Man, this guy looks like FAMU's offense might be a legitimate problem in the SWAC this year. Seriously, we're going to be talking about that. And I have a hot topic, and I think, well, not a hot topic, but maybe a hot take. This is Hugh Jackson's last shot at head coaching. Everything else I got to say about that is going to come on tomorrow. So make sure you're looking for that. I appreciate you for making us your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you are checking out our conference shows like Locked on SEC, Locked on ACC. Hopefully they're not gloating too much, man. But yeah, check those shows out because we're putting out great content on the Locked on network. In the meantime, in between time, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Hey.